Did I get ripped off and scammed with my solar? Well, according to the comments on my most recent solar panel video where I compared a Tesla solar roof to a more modular solar panel system, I surely did get scammed and ripped off. But did I? The critical comments really boil down to 5 basic issues. So let's take a closer look at those one by one. Are solar panels a scam? And did I get ripped off? I'm Matt Ferrell. Welcome to Undecided. This video is brought to you by Factor, but more on that later. While I see negative comments about solar panels a lot on my channel, I was a little surprised by the number of critical comments in my Tesla solar roof versus solar panels video. I mean, to be completely honest, I kind of had a knee-jerk reaction and just kind of wrote most of those off as fear, uncertainty, and doubt and misinformation that kind of pervades all of social media nowadays. But then I challenged that reaction. So let's take a look at this as objectively as I can and see if I did get ripped off. I went through and started grouping comments together into themes to see what trends I could zero in on to explore more, and I came up with 5. First one up is one I see all over my solar panel videos. Solar panels are a scam because they only work in certain areas. Things like they only work where the sun shines a lot, they don't work in cloudy days, or during the winter months. I mean, you can fill in whatever reason you like. Now, while there is an absolute truth to the fact that solar panels only work when the sun is shining, that doesn't mean the sun has to be unobstructed in the sky to produce electricity. Cloudy and overcast days still produce a surprising amount of energy. In fact, overcast days act like a diffuser over a light source. If you have a bare bulb that's shining on an object, the light rays are moving in a straight line from the source when they hit the object. Now, these relatively parallel light rays will cast a very harsh, sharp shadow on the ground. Think about standing outside on a sunny day and looking down at your own shadow. However, if you put a thin layer of diffusion between the light source and yourself, these light rays get refracted and diffused. They're no longer all in parallel to each other when they hit an object. They're bouncing around and coming at the object from many different directions all at once. And the result is a much softer edged shadow. Now, this is what's happening to solar panels on overcast days. Yes, the light hitting the panel isn't as strong, but you can actually get more consistent, lower level power generation over the course of the day because of that diffused light. You can absolutely see the difference in my energy production on sunnier days versus overcast or rainy days, but there's still electricity getting generated, albeit a very small amount. Now just look at the data between March 24th and March 30th. It should be pretty clear which days were overcast and had outright dark gray skies with lots of rain. March 27th was very overcast as a storm was starting to move in, and we still produced 43 kilowatt hours versus our usual 80 kilowatt hours on a truly sunny day. March 28th was a very gloomy, rainy day, and we still produced about 14 kilowatt hours. Now this would be a problem if I was off grid, but I'm not. The days where I'm underproducing could be covered by energy stored in a battery from the previous day or the grid itself. The biggest detriment to location is how many average peak solar hours your panels receive each day over the course of a year. Now here in New England, the winter peak solar hours are pretty low. In the summertime, it might average out to something like 4.27 hours per day, but in the winter, it's only 2.99 hours a day. That's not counting diffuse solar production on the fringes though. Now, while that may not sound like a lot, my solar panel array still produced 748.8 kilowatt hours in December. So is it worth it? Well, all comes down to the cost of the solar panels versus what you're paying for electricity from the grid, and some other small factors which I'm not gonna get into right now. But in my case, electricity works out to roughly 35 cents per kilowatt hour where I live, which is about $260 worth of electricity. But that leads me to the next comment. The second theme that came up was along the lines of solar panels a scam because the cost isn't worth it, or that the math doesn't add up. Often the comments like this bring up the cost for the loan over time versus investing that money into stocks or an investment fund, which would save and generate more money over time. So is that true? Well, before we look into that, there's something else that we need to dig into first, and that's a tasty treat from today's sponsor, Factor. I'm filming this right before lunch, so I'm getting a little extra hungry right now. Now my schedule is so hectic, it's made it challenging to prepare nutritious meals for myself. I was taking shortcuts and eating the easy, not so healthy stuff. Way too much. That's why a year and a half ago, I signed up for Factor well before they were ever a sponsor. I've been eating more well-rounded meals that are chef prepared and dietitian approved. I've been partial to their calorie smart and vegan and veggie options, but I still eat meat from time to time as a special treat. So for those special cravings that you might get, they also have gourmet plus meals, just like this one. The cook of the filet was excellent even after reheating it and came with a delicious side of broccolini. Factor has taken the guesswork out of grocery shopping and preparing my own meals. Not only does it fit my hectic schedule, but it's like getting a quality restaurant takeout meal right at home, and for far less money than takeout. I feel better about what I'm eating, and they're delicious. No prep, no mess, never frozen, and ready in just 2 minutes. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code Undecided50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next box. That's code Undecided50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is still active. Thanks to Factor and to all of you for supporting the channel. So is it true that solar doesn't add up? Well, I've dealt with this exact point in my videos on my previous home solar panel array. There's something I always say in my videos on this. Nobody can tell you if solar panels are right for you other than you. That's not me trying to be cute, but to drive home the point that it's all about context. How much are electricity rates in your area? How much are solar installers charging in your area? What incentives and rebates are available to you in your area? What about low or no interest loans? There's so many variables that nobody can tell you that the math doesn't work across the board. If anyone is stating that solar panels never work financially or that they always work financially, you should ignore those people immediately. I won't rehash all the math on my previous system here because there's a lot of detail in there and it's all in my previous videos that I'll link to down below. Now, I haven't done a deep dive on the investment costs versus the return on my new setup yet because I've only been here for like 5 months with solar and I'm still living with it. I'll definitely be making a video showing real-world data of my specific system and break down the costs with and without incentives for a point of comparison. So check out my old videos and then stay tuned for my new breakdowns. But back to the if you had just invested your money point. There's another important factor that gets discounted by those types of comments. It's not always about the pure money angle for everyone. For some, like myself, there's also a factor of having a system that can continue to provide power in a blackout situation. Instead of a diesel generator setup, I have a setup that can act as a solar generator with a battery backup. You may not find value in that for yourself, but the energy security and independence motivation has a value to many others like myself. The same is true for just wanting to generate electricity from a non-fossil fuel source. To some, that may not be a big enough motivator to justify some of the cost, and you may not agree with that, but again, it's all about your personal goals with this stuff. There's no universal take here. And that leads me nicely into comment theme number 3. It's only for the rich. Now, unfortunately, there's a little bit of a seed of truth to that. Although I wouldn't call myself rich. I'm not Jeff Bezos over here. But my wife and I are lucky enough to be able to afford a home that we built. Home ownership is a major issue that's getting less and less attainable in recent years, and that's something that really has to get done about that. Now, where I'd push back on this, though, is that there are solar programs in some locations that offer low or no interest loans for solar installs. I'm absolutely not a fan of leasing solar panels, so please avoid that at all costs. It really complicates selling your home, has a lot of other baggage too, just avoid it. And whether a loan makes sense for you really depends on what I just mentioned about costs. You'd have to run the math for your specific situation. In my case, the math worked out, but that's absolutely not the case for everybody. The second thing I'd push back on as far as rich people things, or even needing to own a home, is that community solar projects have really been taking off. I've talked about them before, but this can really benefit you if you rent, or even if you own your home and you just don't want to install solar on your roof. Basically, you're buying into a communal solar farm, which means you're leasing or sometimes outright owning a certain portion of the electricity that it produces. This production will get credited to your utility account, which reduces your electricity bill. This is the type of solar project that gets me the most excited because it's accessible to anyone regardless of home ownership. Now, I'll link to some articles and resources in the description to help you find one near you if you're interested. And staying on the cost issue, that leads me to number 4, which all comes down to I could do it or I did do it myself and it would cost half as much. You got ripped off. Now, there were plenty of examples in the comments for folks detailing how much they paid to do it themselves. In some cases, the costs were dramatically lower than what I've paid. And you might think that makes me angry, sad, full of regret, but no, anything but. I love seeing that. Doing something yourself is going to save you a lot of money because you don't have labor costs, marketing costs, the overhead of businesses that are doing it for you. However, it does take up a lot of your own personal time. Just like my previous example, not everyone finds value in the DIY approach. Some don't feel comfortable working with electrical and climbing around their roof. To them, there's a lot of value in hiring somebody who knows what they're doing to do it on your behalf. This may not be the best analogy, but it's kind of like building your own PC. Now, I've done this for decades. I build my own gaming PCs, but I prefer to use Macs for my day-to-day work. If something goes wrong with my Mac or just any PC that you buy from a central source, there's a value to not having to troubleshoot things and fix it yourself. Just take that Mac or PC back to where you bought it from and have them swap it out or fix it. When something goes wrong with my custom-built PC, I have to troubleshoot and figure it out myself. That can sometimes be a time sink or just a complete descent into madness because some random firmware borked the whole system. Not everyone wants to be responsible for their solar panel system if something goes wrong. There's value in having a single point of contact and warranties that cover issues. But having said that, the DIY approach is kind of awesome. That's what I love about this tech. It's made generating your own electricity possible for not only utilities, but for all of us as well. That's an awesome paradigm shift. And finally, the last comment theme actually encompasses most of the others as well. You got ripped off because I paid X dollars where I live. Now, while I'm jealous of the prices all of you pointed out in the comments, there's some extremely important things to highlight from the comments themselves. In Europe, a 17.5 kilowatt setup with a battery is $19,000. In my country, a 12 kilowatt solar panel system is 6,800 euros. Did you catch it? Location, location, location. Even within the US, there are dramatic differences in the cost for solar. My exact system, where I paid $55,000 for 17.2 kilowatts, might cost $40,000 in Arizona. Now the reason? Local cost of goods, labor, permitting, inspections, there's a whole host of things that go into this. In solar, there's hard costs, which is the hardware and the equipment, and soft costs, which is the labor, the permitting, the inspections, the marketing, the overhead of the company that's doing it for you. All of that stuff plays into this. Now, for all of you that are in another country, the comparisons get even more stark. My favorite is Australia, because I'm just very jealous of Australia. The cost of solar there is just mind-bending. My first thought was, oh, it's the labor and the cost of living differences. But no. Comparing Australia to Massachusetts, it may not be a fair comparison to do a country to a state, but it's 29.4% more expensive to live here than in Australia. We're paying 40.4% more for groceries, 59.8% more for housing, dollar to dollar. Now, the average cost per watt of solar in Australia is 99 cents, which just makes my brain hurt. My 17.2 kilowatt system would have cost about $17,000 in Australia. If you add on about 29.4% for the cost of living difference, it's still only about $22,000 comparatively. That's not why solar is so much more expensive here in the US. So if it's not the cost of living differences, what? Well, it's those soft costs on solar. In Australia, they have a super streamlined permitting and approval process. You can fill out an online form in Australia and have approval to install the next day. In the US, depending on where you live, it could take weeks or even months. I've been waiting months to get approval to install my battery system from the utility. The more permits and the more inspections, the more money it ultimately ends up costing. There's a great video from the YouTube channel Distilled that goes into the biggest differences between the US and Australian market. But for the bottom line, the US is actually working on a standardized system that is somewhat like Australia's, which should help to drive down the costs and wait times, if it passes. But for right now, the bureaucracy and permitting and inspection craziness here means that we have a much higher per watt cost. So in the comment theme, yeah, you're correct. The US is getting ripped off compared to other areas of the world when it comes to costs. But again, it's all about
location, location, location.
I didn't get ripped off based on my region's average costs, but the US has to do way better. So like I said, solar is a very personal decision because everyone's motivations are different. For me, I had zero regrets with my previous home solar installation and costs, but the jury is still very much out on my new home. I'll be detailing what's working out once I have enough real-world data to crunch the final numbers, not just prediction estimates. So stay tuned for that. But what do you think? If you have solar, do you feel like you've gotten your value out of it, or do you feel ripped off? Jump in the comments and let me know. And be sure to listen to my follow-up podcast, Still to be Determined, while we'll keep this conversation going. Thanks to all my patrons for your continued support. I'll see you in the next one.